Hello, this is Carter, working on the second general management for Linux security. First one I want to do is elevate permissions using sudo su. We're going to navigate to the SE directory. There's a couple of files we need to take a look at in here. First one is the hosts. This allows you to redirect traffic or something typed in by the user in a browser to any IP address of your choosing. So if thing was at 23.23.23.23, for example, you type in google.com over here. Then whenever you typed in google.com into the browser, it would instead redirect to this IP address 23.23.23.23, which is probably not Bing, but that's the general gist. That's the general idea of this one. We've got the pass.bd. This includes all of the users, including the system users. It has stuff like their user ID, their group ID, their full name, some fields that won't generally populate because it's fairly niche, their home directory, and then this. This will determine whether or not they can actually use, they can log in basically. /bin/false won't allow them to log in, but /bin/bash will. So if you need to get rid of a user, maybe try using /bin/false. I don't recall exactly if that counts. But whatever you do, don't make sure you're not deleting the user's home directory in case you can access it later on. We've also got the group file. It contains a list of groups, and this will be important because groups have different associated permissions for various things, and you don't want random users having access to the sudo command. You don't want that. So SciPath user we're currently using has access to that, but no one else does. So you want to make sure that only very limited people have access to that. While we're on that kind of train, let's cat into the sudoers file. This contains a list of user privileges. So for root, this is like the super user. All, that basically means they have full permissions. Root user has full permissions. Admin group has full permissions. Sudo group has full permissions. They can do anything. They can access all the commands to do all of the stuff basically. You want to make sure that unauthorized users and groups are not in here. Secure paths, you want to make sure there's not stuff that's strange in here. They could redirect that somehow. Another way to access this is through vi sudo. That's another way to access that, access a nano of it. Alright, moving on, we have the shadow file. For every user, it contains the hash of their password. So if there's not a password, you'll be missing this long string here. And a little bit of other information about the users. There's login.defs. This contains stuff you'll be going into here to change the password age and whatnot. So maximum days of password, you'll set that that's like 42 or something. Minimum days like 5 or something like that. Born age 7. So that'll say that every 42 days, password must change their password. The user must change their password. They can't change it any more than. They have to wait 5 days between changing passwords. They can't constantly change it. And then 7 days before they have to change it, it'll warn them to let them know that that it's going to be soon. All right, that's going to be pretty important. The adduser.conf is important to look at. You want to make sure that there's nothing weird going on. So the default shell /bin/bash. If this is /bin/false, any new user created by default will not be able to log in. You want to make sure that stays /bin/bash. Directory, this is where the home directory should go. It will go by default. So every user, their home directory will by default go inside /home, which is the default. Skel, /skel. This is where it'll get the baseline for what belongs in the user's home directory. So if I cd into skel, it's actually a directory. Every time you make a user, it will contain examples.desktop. Anything in here will be duplicated in the new user's home directory. In addition, here we've got pam.d. If we cd into pam up1 pam.d, and here there's some stuff here, common password. This is where you'll add stuff. Here, retry, minland, defolk. So user has 3 tries to get the password right. If they don't, they'll get locked out. The passwords that the users have must be at least 8 characters, and then you can add stuff on the end here as well. You add your various credits of different kinds to have required password complexity. So you'll have that in there. And here you'll change a couple things here too. So if we, all right, so those are some of the big files here that you'll need to take care to look at. There's more, but those are the basic ones you'll want to poke around. And in here, there's just a lot to look through. You know, I said add user. You might also go into, you know, checking the Dell user, see what the default stuff is there. So remove all files, remove home, backup to. So, you know, you don't want to have it remove everything by default when you delete a user. You want to have it there in case. You want it to give you the option when you're asking about it. This is important. All right, so in addition to those important files, there's we talk about file permissions, which is kind of, you know, relevant based on the groups and stuff I was talking about earlier. So if we run an LL here, which is basically the same thing as running an ls, have an ALH. It's a it's just an alias. But all right, and here we've got some funky stuff here. We've got all this stuff on the left, and then we've got, you know, some things here, and then modify kind of thing in the size of the file. All right, so we're going to take this again, take this apart piece by piece. First of all, it has a D here. It means it's a directory. It's a folder. sudoers.d. sudoers file does not have the D. Next, we've got this string of characters here. It's read, write, execute, read, write, execute, read, write, execute. So it's all about who has the permissions to do what with the files. So it's 3 of these sets. So the first one represents the owner of the file, this person right here. That person has access the ability to read the file, write to the file, make changes to it is what that means, and execute, run the file. The next one is the group that owns the file, so that's the second column here. That means that anyone in the group can read it and execute it, but they can't write to it, they can't make changes to it. And then global, everyone else, that's just, they can read it, they can execute it, they just can't write to it. So here, only this can be written here. So in another case, this file here, subgid, has read-write for the owner, but no one can execute it, and no one else can read or write to it, just the owner, which is root here. The way these files are made, so if I just go into /home let's go to /home. So right now there's just a sitepad, that's just the user's home directory for this current system. So if we just touch a file here, if we just touch file.txt. Alright, so file.txt here, as you can see, we made it as root. So we have access to read, write to it, no one can execute it, everyone can read, except we can also write to it. So what we could do here is we could change the permissions on that file to make it so everyone could access it. So we do 777 chmod, which changes the modifier, like the permissions, file.text. So now, if we take a look at it, you see here, everyone has access to it. That's not generally good for most files because a lot of system files are pretty critical. You want to make sure that people don't have access to that kind of thing. So, you know, you might do something more conservative, like a chmod 640 file.text. No, oops. All right, that means that that's like, you know, the owner of the file can read and write to it, and the group can read it, but no one else can do anything with it. And no one can execute it. Only person can write to it is the owner. So you may be asking, how do you change, you know, the user, like the owner of it? Well, chown allows you to do that. So if you use chown and sitepad the file, you take a look at it. Now sitepad, the user sitepad owns it, and so does but the root group still is the group that owns it. So now sitepad has the access to read and write to it, but no one else can. So if we were to do something, if we were to chown that back to root, file.text, and we were to exit the sudo, then we won't be able to nano into, well, we can nano into it. Okay, so we can nano into it at this point. Oh, we can't actually read it either. Permission denied. So what that means is, since we are not in either the user or the group, we can't even read it. These last two permissions, read, write, and execute, that's what applies to us right now. And since there's nothing in there, we can't do any of that. So if we sudo chmod that to be 644. Helps if I attach it to a file. Now, everyone can read it. So now I should be able to nano into it. So now it doesn't say as I can read lines, I just now can't write. I don't have permission to write to it, but I can still read it now. So that's the basis of the way you change things. Now, you're probably wondering what those numbers mean. So in each of these little sections here, these are represented by a number. So 1, 2, 3, that's a number. 1, 2, 3, that's a number. 1, 2, 3, that's a number. So the way it works is read is worth 4, write is worth 2, and execute is worth 1. So if we were to sudo su again, if we were to change it so everyone can access the file, as I showed earlier, chmod, you change that to 777, that'd give full permissions because the read is 4, the write is 2, and the execute is 1. So 4 plus 2 plus 1, which is the same thing as 4 plus 3, is 7. So that means that the owner can do everything to it, the group that owns it can do everything to it, and everybody else can do everything to it. So everyone can modify it at this point. So you can see that there. Alright, now if I were to chmod, let's start at 000. Yeah, so we added all the perms, now we took away all the perms. So no one can do anything to that. That's just kind of, no one's messing with that. So now if we just take a look, so if we chmod, we give 001. That helps if I attach a file to it. That means that 001. Nothing is, no permission given to the owner, none to the group, but everyone can read, can execute it. So that's all they can do. So if we change that back again, no one has permission. So if we do, if we do 200, that applies 2. So, read is worth 4, so that's not applied. Write is worth 2. Oh, hey, there's our 2 points from this. And then 00, no one else gets anything. And this kind of applies back and forth. So if I were to give it write for the owner, read for the group, and then execute for everybody else, I would say chmod, I'd give it a 2 because write is worth 2, 4 because read is worth 4, and then 1. Again, it helps if I attach a file to it. Alright, now, like I said, owner can write to it, group can read it, everyone else can execute it. That's the basis of how changing permissions works on Linux. Final thing we'll talk about here briefly, very briefly, is looking for things, locating. So if you want to look for files, forensics files, for example, or unauthorized media files, the easiest way to do it is to do a locate command or a find command. So AVDB updates a database, so you can type in this locate command, all.jpg. Now, I don't expect anything to happen here, but if I go to the root directory, I couldn't find anything at all. Alright, so if I try to locate everything.jpg, ooh, look at all this stuff I got. Everything that leads up to .jpg, it will find. It's very useful thing to do. So if you're looking for PHP files, you can do the same thing, .php. If you're looking for a specifically named file, you could do, I know it has, I'm looking for a penguin, something about a penguin on the system. What I could do here is I could say, alright, I don't know where it is, I don't know what the extension is. I do asterisk, penguin, asterisk. Oh, look at this stuff. We found everything that has penguin in it. So this asterisk here is a wildcard, which means that anything at all can be before it. Anything at all can be after it. So you could say, if you know it's going to end in desktop, it has penguin in it, it has desktop at the end, but you don't know anything between. So you could say anything anything penguin, anything desktop, anything. This will give you everything that has penguin in it with a desktop somewhere after it. So as you can imagine, this can get pretty powerful pretty quickly, just depending on how you use it. Another way you could go about doing this thing is you could do find /-name. So what this does is find, and you choose a directory, then you do -name. You say everything .jpeg. Close it off. All right. So that'll also find you everything. It seems to be slower. So I personally use locate.
Anyway, so those are the locate and the find commands. Both very useful in competition if you can figure out how to do them right. Let's going back to the permissions a little bit. If we go back into the etc directory, these files, we want to do some research on them, but stuff like the pseudoverse file, the important ones we talked about earlier, the shadow, the pass WD, you want to make sure these all have a specific kind of set of permissions, and make sure you do some research on that. I don't have the exact numbers right now, but you want to keep in mind that system files do need to have certain permissions to prevent users from accessing them that shouldn't be able to, using those techniques I mentioned earlier. Other than that, good luck, and that's the end of this video. I'll see you later.